guys, if you missed the 12 o'clock video, let me go ahead and get you guys up to steam.
Of the US people, I said that if we can name a favorite candidate, it used to be Joe Biden, but now he is not participating in the election campaign, and he recommended all his allies to support Ms. Harris, so that is what we are going to do.
So we are right back to Russia, Russiagate, all that type of stuff there. Now, guys, before we get started, make sure you guys go ahead and cut the notifications on for the channel so that way you guys are notified when videos come out. Also, please go ahead and hit the like button. If you guys are new here, go ahead and subscribe. Hitting the like button, of course, is free. And, of course, I don't think all my videos are getting out to my subscribers. But then again, though, at the same time, though, I go into my analytics and find out that my subscribers are actually getting my videos. But for just make sure you guys are hitting that like button so that way the YouTube algorithm, it kind of registers so that way the video will take off. So, what's going on here? Oh, yeah, that's right. This was the follow-up to the previous video, which, of course, is about the situation involving the DOJ. I almost said DOJ, but the DOJ. Yeah, that's correct. I'll leave the indictment in the description box for you guys. So apparently the DOJ has indicted two RT, or not two RT employees, but two people from Russia who were connected to RT, who apparently gave Lauren Chen a bunch of money. And of course, now Lauren Chen is also included in that indictment. And yet the indictment says that Tim Pool, Benny Johnson, Taylor Hanson, Lauren Southern, Matt Christensen, Dave Rubin, everybody associated with Tenet Media, not named Lauren Chen, are considered to be victims, meaning that Lauren Chen is under investigation. Now, there are some people on the right, or some people who have accounts that are right-leaning. One person in particular is Jamie Michelle. She's the person who ran Gays Against Squirmers, even though she's not really a right-winger or a right-leaning person. She's just somebody who does not want people who are LGBT wrapped up into a... let's just say another lifestyle here that, quite frankly, does not exactly bode well here on YouTube, as far as if you mention certain said bit these people do, you will find your channel getting demonetized. That type of thing there. I know it's a little bit confusing. I know I got to be a little bit evasive here, but they also went ahead and started piling on the train that Lauren Chen was a Russian asset. Now, guys, I'm here to tell you guys right now that it's not as cut and dry as you think. I'm not saying that to defend Lauren Chen, because God knows we got to go through her recent Twitter history, which might make you think that, oh, no, you know what, maybe there might be something going on here. But still, at the same time, though, if you are somebody who's in the legal field, like, say, Robert Barnes, you're obviously going to think to yourself that this particular indictment is a bunch of crap. And that right here is what we're obviously going to discuss. So, what exactly does the indictment say? Well, the indictment says that everybody working for Tenet Media is a bit of a victim in what is a scheme involving two foreign agents who did not register to be foreign agents, who also gave Lauren Chen a bunch of money. Now, a lot of people have came out to defend Lauren Chen. One person is Sean Fitzgerald on his Twitter feed, saying I've met her personally, met her family, stuff like that there. And of course, you've got others who work for Lauren Chen or work with her saying they don't buy in a daggone bit of it. Still, though, at the same time, though, it does make you wonder exactly how far the DOJ will go to push this Russian narrative. They did it in 2016. They did it after the 2016 election when they did not get the result they want. It looks to me like they're already narrative setting. I already did a video on that. They got to set the narrative. They got to give their voters somebody to blame when they lose this fall, because apparently Kamala Harris's internal polls are pretty daggone terrible. Also, something else too, I forgot to mention this in the previous video. Why is Harris campaigning in New Hampshire? Why is she campaigning in Virginia? Why is she campaigning in New Jersey? Why is she giving up $25 million of her own money to help down ballot candidates? It's probably because she's doing piss poor and terrible, even in blue states. But still, though, that does not stop the Department of Justice from filing these lawsuits or filing these frivolous indictments on people who may or may not be involved, more than likely not involved. So how in the world did we get here? Well, it actually goes back a lot further than you think. What you guys are seeing here in the B-roll footage is Ashley Sinclair, who also tweeted up a bit of a storm about this situation, talking about the indictment. And like I said, the indictment will be in the description box of this video. But earlier this year, if you guys remember, we had a bunch of campus protests. Those protests were protests against Israel. There was the Free Palestine crowd. And of course, we had this debate of whether that was free speech or not. One person in particular that we'll be talking about here in the near future is Candace Owens. I'm going to link this video from Too Lazy to Try in the description box, because it looks like my initial thinking of her may have actually been correct. But still, though, I advise you guys check that video out. But of course, the debate was about whether the campus protests were in fact free speech or something should be done about it. And of course, Ashley St. Clair, being very, very much on the pro-Israel side, me of course being pro-Israel too, obviously he had some questions about this situation. Let me go ahead and roll some of this for you.
Because he said there's two genders, right? But what I see on the right is actual genuine misogyny.
I don't know that that's organic, and I may be stepping into my own conspiracies here, but I don't think it's coincidental that right before the election, the right becomes the exact caricature of what the left had said the right was for years, and it wasn't. You know, many of us on the right knew that the right was not, you know, this anti-Semitic, misogynistic group of folks. And now all of a sudden we're seeing this rise in misogynistic rhetoric and people who fundamentally believe that women shouldn't vote.
Those of you out there who will just say, well, it's simple, we need to repeal the 19th. And trust me, I am no fan of the 19th Amendment myself.
So it turns out that some portions of the internet are just now finding out that I don't actually support democracy, and they're very upset about it.
Okay, now if you're a little bit confused, let me explain. The Aristocrat Utensil Spoon also did a very good video responding back to Ashley St. Clair because she said a lot of things that quite frankly just weren't very bright. But still though, when we get to the topic of campus protest, it'll make a lot more sense. Like I said, I threw that one out there first just to kind of go ahead and make a point, but let me explain what I mean. During the campus protest, apparently any and every stereotype about the right suddenly came out. Suddenly the left was blaming the right for anti-Semitism. They were suddenly going after the right, saying they were anti-woman. They wanted to repeal the 19th Amendment. By the way, that is a conversation for a later date. I have a different opinion altogether from these people from both sides of the aisle when they mention this entire thing, but we'll talk about that at a later date. Just about every single character in the world that made men look stupid or white men look stupid or made white men look bigoted or whatnot came out at that time, and they were going all over the internet, which, by the way, was something that people like Ashley St. Clair were accusing people like, say, I don't know, like, I don't have much of a Twitter account, but people with my line of thinking of suddenly being bigoted and anti-woman. It was one of those situations where you couldn't win regardless. You couldn't win. You couldn't get a word in edgewise. It was just that bad of a spot. And, of course, a lot of the bits that you saw there from Lauren Chen saying she turns out she's not that much in favor of democracy. I really and truly am not either. This is actually a republic, but still at the same time, though, takes like that were obviously being posted. Now, before I go any further, I need to show you guys these tweets that you guys have seen. Now, obviously, I'm not going to read them out loud. But the point that I'm trying to get across is that even if Lauren Chen, let's just say that she's 100% innocent, she's not connected to these two RT workers who failed to register as foreign agents, or even if she is, she obviously made herself a target. Remember, it's an election year, so therefore, if you are maybe a Trump voter, or if you are even a Harris voter, chances are you're probably going to get behind the party's platform, regardless of what said platform is. And Lauren Chen recently has been putting up tweets like, you should withhold your vote for Trump until he makes a much, much bigger pro-life stance. Trump's stance on abortion at this moment in time is to send it back to the states. The reason why he did that was to muddy the waters. Now, obviously, somebody who's pro-life like myself, I'm a little bit disappointed, but obviously I understand what the prospects are of this election. What happens if we lose? So, of course, I'm going to go vote for Trump. A lot of these people that pitched this whole thing, started this crap back in 2023, they were what we call the DeSantis bots. Not DeSantis voters, so please don't beat me up. If you prefer DeSantis in the primaries, I understand why. But you have these online sock puppets that used to literally harass the hell out of Trump voters, and anybody who was even considering Trump, they would just literally harass the hell out of them. It was constant. Max Nordau, you had this guy named Heflin, you got this guy, Florida Dad, Florida Defiant Baptist, people like that, who, by the way, if you study their accounts, you know that they're just jilted Barney bros, and of course, Democrats, who quite frankly are there to subvert the party, or the conservative base, wherever you might want to know. Well, during the whole Free Palestine thing, they were doing the exact same thing. The much, much more anti-Israel section of the right, they were running their mouth louder and louder and louder. So therefore, Russia obviously being a little bit more friendlier, or let me just go ahead and say those nations that adhere to a certain religion called Islam, they typically find themselves aligning themselves more with Russia. I'm pretty sure you guys can kind of sort of see where this is going. And Lauren Chen kind of balled into that too, and they were saying it was free speech. Let the protests continue, even though obviously if you guys remember those protests needed to stop. Basically, any and every caricature that the right could ever be accused of was coming out at that time, and therefore it probably made her a bit of a mark and somebody that was easy to go after for the purposes of said indictment. Now, does that mean that I think that she's a Russian asset or not a Russian asset? I want to see a little bit more before I decide to make my mind up on that, but I can definitely tell you right now, based on her recent Twitter activity and things that she said, the refusal to get behind the Republican army, it definitely makes her a bit of a bot. I'm not saying that if you're not behind Trump, I'm not saying you're a Russian or you're pro-Russia or anything like that, or you're helping Putin out, even though you kind of are, because I explained in the previous video, Putin actually would prefer Harris, but still at the same time, though, that's kind of why a lot of people are looking at this and saying maybe she is working on behalf of Russia. But it does get a little bit murkier when you look at it closer. But let's go back to this bit from Trigonometry, because actually St. Clair was kind of leading the charge with the tweets and trying to get people to kind of think about this situation. But let's keep watching this.
Who fundamentally are siding with the people taking over our universities right now. I don't think that's organic. I think there's a lot more foreign bot farms and outside influences boosting these people in the retardo sphere than we have any idea about right now. I think it's fundamentally really damaging to allow this rhetoric to go on, this misogynistic rhetoric.
I'm just trying to delve deeper into the conspiracy. Are you saying this is kind of deliberate to get Republicans to look dumb and offensive?
I believe so. I really believe that this is boosted by things that are inorganic, because when you look at the engagement on some of these accounts, it is bananas. At least I don't want to believe that many people truly hold those sentiments. And maybe I'm just too optimistic about humanity and people, but I don't think it's organic at all, that all of a sudden this is sprouting up. And we have this many people who genuinely believe that women shouldn't vote. The
belief was that social media was propping these people up. People like Fuentes, people like even Candace Owens with her anti-Israel takes, people like just some people on the right that are a little bit less. Lauren Witzke's a good example of what I mean. If you guys follow these people, you know, the crowd that says, you know what, I will not support Donald Trump because he's pro-Israel, that type of thing there. The people that Tim Pool accused of having Israel derangement syndrome, that type of stuff there, those people were obviously being propped up, and it was causing a bit of a wedge. The difference, however, between most conservative movements and most liberal movements is that most conservative movements figure out the problem, hash it out real quick, and then just move the hell on. But there is obviously still a faction of holdouts out there, Lila Rose, for example, who gets paid millions of dollars a year as a pro-life advocate to just throw great big giant parties and do absolutely nothing, who are constantly screaming and telling their supporters to withhold their vote for Trump because he's not pro-life enough, even though he obviously gave them pro-life judges to get Roe v. Wade overturned. This is kind of sort of how this entire situation originally started. It was a subversion, and you had these people who were lumping in with radical Islam against Israel. So a lot of these things were coming out at the time, and therefore it obviously made them an easy mark for Russia to take advantage of, if you want to believe that Russia is in fact trying to subvert our elections. I told you guys in the last video that it looks like everybody tries to subvert our elections the exact same way that we try to do the same thing. It just so happens to be that the Democratic Party typically tends to side with the left, and while the Russians claim that they want the right in charge, they really and truly don't. If you actually look at the history, Russia's always been able to kind of do what Russia wants to do when a Democrat's in office, because Democrats are much, much more lazy on the topic, even though they claim to be more hawkish. Still, though, at the same time, though, it obviously didn't stop left-wingers who obviously didn't read the indictment from posting clips like this.
But I don't know that it matters anymore. This is psychotic. Ukraine is the enemy of this country. Ukraine is our enemy, being funded by the Democrats. I will stress this again. One of the greatest enemies of our nation right now is Ukraine. They are expanding this war. Now, don't get me wrong. I know you've got criminal elements of the U.S. government pushing them and guiding them and telling them what to do. Ukraine is now accused, a German warrant issued for blowing up the Nord Stream pipeline, triggering this conflict. Ukraine is the greatest threat to this nation and to the world. We should rescind all funding and financing, pull out all military support, and we should apologize
Tim
to
Pool is now a Russian agent, a Russian asset, because Tim Pool opposes the war in Ukraine. I oppose the war in Ukraine. I think that the situation between Russia and Ukraine is basically two turds fighting to be king turd on top of shit mountain. I told you guys that on several occasions, and quite frankly, you're never going to change my mind. Look, do I think Russia's our biggest threat? No, I think China's our biggest threat. But at the same time, though, do I trust Russia? Hell no, I don't trust Russia. Obviously, they have a base, an air base in Syria, which, by the way, Trump bombed the shit out of Syria shortly after he got in office. Russian ally, and of course, my immediate thinking to all the pro-Trump as a Russian agent people was, Why the hell would he bomb Syria if he's a Russian agent? I mean, come on, man. He just just blew up a base with Russians on it. Come on, what the hell's wrong with you? These people don't think very. They don't think. As a matter of fact, the indictment itself shows you exactly how little these people think. Because as I mentioned before, indicting Lauren Chen probably does the Trump voter a favor because it gets a never Trumper or potential never Trumper who has an audience out of the way. Not to mention the fact that she's Canadian and she lives in Tennessee, so it's not like if she physically went out and voted, her vote would matter because Tennessee is extremely red. But still, though, it's not stopping people from going out of their way to hit the beanie guy for being a Russian asset because he's obviously anti the war in Ukraine. And speaking of that, there you get idiots like Rick Wilson, who clearly does not understand the implications that I would say the implications of the indictment are actually... I'll put it this way here. Democrats don't seem to realize that by indicting Lauren Chen, who, by the way, has now got to stay quiet, they're silencing a never Trump voice that they would need. You see, you win elections with turnout, not with polls. Lauren Chen, as I said before, has kind of sort of boarded the never Trump train. We shouldn't vote for him until he promises this, promise that. Well, that's just one less never Trumper that's got a platform, or potential never Trumper that has a platform that's out of the way. So I don't see how the hell the Biden DOJ is doing anything but actually helping the Donald out here. I'm just saying these people are obviously stupid. And of course, Tim Pool, they're going after him because he puts up tweets like what I'm showing you now, which seem to be pro-Israel and pro-Ukraine. These people don't seem to realize that Tim Pool also loves to troll. The whole thing where he said he was voting for RFK was a troll. He did that obviously to trigger people on the right, people like Cat Turd and the much more pro-Trump accounts, into believing that now he was no longer on their side. The fact of the matter is that Tim Pool was just trolling. There is one more thing, though, I do want to say before I get to this last bit, though, because obviously Tim had an answer to what was going on, and I think there's a lot more here than meets the eye. Benny Johnson, he put out a tweet earlier about this, and I'll try to put it in the B-roll footage for you guys to read, or I'll try to find it and link it in the description box. But he basically said, look, the lawyers are handling this, yada, 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 yada. If you bring it up, I'm going to take you to court. Now, the thing about lawsuits is this, right? You typically don't tend to file a lawsuit unless you think that a person is, in fact, actually defaming you. There are frivolous lawsuits, of course, but Benny is not an account on this platform that's small. Yes, he's a bit of a grifter. Yes, he's got a past with BuzzFeed, but he's not exactly a small account. So I do think he does have some money. And if Turning Point USA does, in fact, get involved, this situation could look bad for the Biden administration. It could actually backfire on them. Still, though, at the same time, especially given Kamala Harris's recent comments when it comes to X and social media, that's kind of, I probably should have lined that up a little bit better, but I'm on a bit of a roll right now. It seems to me like these people are just looking for another excuse to silence free speech. But let's get to this right here.
We're going over the arguments and all that stuff. I can't say too much, but I just want to let you know that we are we're close to filing. We will be filing. It is happening. It's a guarantee. I'm saying straight up, I got to be careful. It's my full intention that we'll move forward. And it seems to be the case that we've taken a great step forward. So if you support these efforts, for those that aren't familiar, the Harris campaign accused me of being a Trump operative, part of Project 2025, and for calling for the extrajudicial execution of anyone who would not support Donald Trump should he win, which is the craziest thing anyone could say about someone, especially in the political landscape. With all seriousness, this is the Kamala campaign account. I am trying desperately to be this is not true. You know what really pisses me off the most about it is how adamantly opposed to the death penalty I am. And
it is strange that this word literally comes out a few days after there's a tweet posted by Kamala Harris basically going after Tim Pool saying that, look, if you don't vote for Trump, you need to got to do that right there for the algorithm rather than say it out loud. It is kind of odd, especially given the fact that Tim Pool also recently just met with an attorney to sue her campaign. It is definitely strange, and it would make you think that maybe they just want to stifle another voice. But like I said before, when you're in the online world, you do immediately become a target. And if I didn't say this right before, getting back to Lauren Chen, and you're going to hear me say it again to close the video out, if you start doing the never Trump takes and you start doing the I'm going to stay home and I encourage you to stay home on election day because he's not hard enough on abortion, or maybe because he's got somebody who's trans who actually was backing Robert F. Kennedy, who's now backing Trump because Trump now is being backed by RFK. It seems to me like if you start saying stuff like that there and you're pulling a purity spiral, On election day, it seems to me like you could be ripe for two people who didn't register as foreign agents who worked for RT, Russia Times, who also, and by the way, Tim Pool is extremely good friends with Cassandra McDonald, who also at one time worked for RT. I'm not saying that he is. I'm not saying that he isn't an asset. I'm just simply saying there's a lot of crazy stuff going on here. And to go on top of that there, it kind of makes him a bit of a mark. That right there is what I'm simply trying to say. And given Lauren Chen's recent takes, it kind of makes her an easy mark to get picked. I mean, what's the old saying? You know, what was it, Game of Thrones? If I was going to be, I don't want to be the prettiest flowers in the field, because the prettiest flowers in the field are always the ones that get plucked. It's the things that stand out. That's the ones they normally go for first. But let's watch this last bit.
Maybe by tonight, I should have some massive updates. I mean, huge stuff coming. But we'll see. Just a quick brief on that as we open up on the intro to the show. For those that didn't see, the DOJ indicted 2 Russians for FARA violations, failing to register as foreign agents, and claiming that they were funneling money into a U.S.-based company to pay right-wing producers for content. Now, there's some clarifications here. If you actually read the indictment, the story is basically that, and this is if their allegations are true, I don't know, they're alleging. And it's funny because the liberals and the Democrats, they're clearly not reading the indictments because it doesn't matter to them. But the indictment is that Dave Rubin, Benny Johnson, Matt Christensen, Lauren Southern, and Taylor Hansen, others, were deceived into signing onto a company through various deals. And it seems like the intention was to utilize our name and brand recognition so that they could build up their own platform and then they could push their own narratives or whatever. It's being misconstrued by the media that the allegation is that we as commentators were pushing the misinformation. Diamond doesn't say that, but I can't speak for anybody else. So we'll do this. We'll talk news, but I got to admit, I've produced very little.
What I get out of that is that most people really and truly did not read the indictment. I mean, hell, I didn't really read the indictment at first. I read mostly the comment section. I'm not going to lie to you guys. But of course, obviously, I go and look at CNN and actually read the article. Which, the truth be told, is that's actually how they get you. They get you by showing you the headline and the initial reporting. But the reporting is just the commentary. The truth be told is the real answers are actually in the print, which of course are mostly typed up in the actual text. That right there is where the real truth is at. I remember a while back they had a movie called, I think it was the movie starring Julia Roberts, Let the World Go or something like that there, or Leave the World Behind, where people were talking about the film, which was actually, I think it was headed up by Obama. He consulted on it. People were talking about how it was actually pushing CRT, and it was actually pushing how it was that they would actually destroy the United States, or at least that the U.S.'s plan to overtake the U.S. I remember watching it, and there was one scene in the film that completely debunked the entire situation for me, and that was the end of the film where Kevin Bacon's character, the lowly right-wing nut is what you might would think of him, a guy like myself, who was spotted earlier in the film buying mulch and stuff that you would actually have to like prepare a garden. And what he says to the main characters at the end of the film is that you guys have got to get past the headline. It seems to me like maybe the filmmakers were saying that people on the right were prepared for what is coming, and that means that people on the right were not only prepared for what was coming, but quite frankly, they were obviously ahead of the game, and they were obviously much, much smarter than the ones who just simply look at the headline and keep on going on about their day, not thinking about the things that could, in fact, be destroying the nation. And, of course, they just vote blindly because they vote on racial issues and things of that nature there because they know the American populace is, quite frankly, pretty daggone emotional. And, of course, the right also has an emotional section. These people who, quite frankly, are not thinking strategically, and these people who are saying to themselves, you know what, I think I'm going to stay home because Donald Trump is not he's not pro-life enough, not to mention, never mind the fact that he was the most pro-life president we ever had, and he understands what it takes to win elections, and you might want to, muddy the waters a little bit and take that issue away from them. That type of stuff right there makes you an easy mark for someone like said Putin or Russian agents to get a hold of you, pay you money, push the propaganda, push whatever, so that way a certain side of the aisle is divided on a certain issue and they don't go vote. Meaning that there's less votes for said candidate to have, meaning they can't get over, which makes it easier for the other person to get nominated. I talked about the Democrats' history with Russia in the previous video. I don't think I need to rehash it, but I'll link it in the description box for you guys. But let me just go ahead and say this. The Russians would always prefer the liberal in office because they know the liberal is more likely to never put boots on the ground. Joe Biden has been very, very hawkish as far as his trash talk has been concerned over Russia since he's been in office. Have we put personnel on the ground? No. I've been saying it for a while. We would never put actual boots on the ground in Russia. We would never put boots on the ground in Ukraine. We would never do that because Biden, quite frankly, doesn't have the stomach to do that. Now, like I said, I'm not in favor of going to war in Ukraine. I'm just simply saying that anytime you got a Democrat in office, they normally don't have the stomach for it because they love to play the peace angle. They do it normally in their second term. Ask Bill Clinton about Bosnia, Kosovo, all that stuff there. Still, though, the point is this right here. Lauren Chen, this situation here, while it looks like there's more here than meets the eye, I'm not entirely sold that she is a Russian asset. But still, at the same time, given her recent history and recent takes, it would obviously make her somebody that the DOJ could obviously pluck. Like I said, a flower that, quite frankly, would get pulled because it was a much, much more seen one to pull. Just simply saying that she made herself a bit of a mark. I hope she gets out of this fine. I hope I'm correct. I'm hoping my feelings are correct that she's not a Russian asset. But still, at the same time, though, we're living in a crazy world. But as I said before, though, if they think this is going to help them out, they're wrong, because if they're taking a never-Trumper who can actually influence votes off the table, then how does that help them? You guys tell me in the description box. Make sure you guys please hit the like button, subscribe, share the video. I'm getting these videos done on Thursday night to post on Friday because I'm probably not going to be in the house for most of the day tomorrow. I've got to go to the doctor. It was an appointment I scheduled like 3 months ago, but still, though, it needs to go. And maybe I can get some more information on what's going on. So make sure you guys please hit the like button, subscribe, share the video, sign off in the comments, and I'll see you guys later.